Thank you, Acting Speaker. And unfortunately, I'm not thrilled. I know. What a surprise, I know. But after 3 days of debating this bill on local jobs, when we should be debating a very important bill on the VicGrid legislation that farmers have been protesting on the front steps about on numerous occasions, if this government professes to care so much about local jobs, let's talk about strengthening local jobs in the region, which are, Acting Speaker, supported by which industry? The agriculture industry. And not only in terms of those that work the land, but the apprentices that they employ. My husband's got an apprentice in the workshop. There's apprentices in mechanics, there's apprenticeships and traineeships all throughout the ag sector, not to mention the generational farmers that work the land. They are the local jobs that matter to regional Victorians, and the fact that we cannot move on from this bill on the third day that it's being debated, and we all agree with local jobs, but 3 days debating a bill that we actually don't oppose when we are being stopped from debating a bill that clearly regional communities oppose, these draconian laws that will allow VicGrid employees to enter land. And Acting Speaker, let me give you a scenario. If there is...
The member for Mildura will take a seat. The member for Frankston.
Acting Speaker, can you please bring the Speaker on her feet back to the bill?
I'd ask the member for Mildura to come back to the bill, please.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. And of course, they're going to want to come back to the bill and not speak about a bill that is on the business program later in the day because they're afraid to. Clearly, they're filibustering all day so that we don't. The extraordinarily long list that want to speak on that VicGrid bill, that will actually, that bill goes toward safety of regional communities as well. I've had people that are employed on farms. If we're talking about local jobs, I'm talking about local jobs in the regions and the ones that actually matter to them. On farms, which can be terribly isolating, the fact that mothers can be home with their children, sometimes for weeks on end, particularly during harvest, that people that are unauthorised and unwelcome are able to enter that farmland when they're already there alone is frightening, because they have people working in local jobs, on projects, on farms.
The member for Eureka.
This doesn't seem to have anything to do with the bill, but rather a completely different bill that is not before the House.
I'd remind the member for Mildura to debate the bill that's currently before the House.
I'm talking about local jobs in the regions, and I understand that those on the other side don't want to talk about local jobs in the region. This government will pat itself on the back for mandating locally made PPE on a rail project in the city, but at the same time they're making it harder and harder for our farmers to grow food, run livestock and export their produce. They'll demand let's talk about this job, they'll demand Australian-made uniforms while slapping red tape, land grabs, unworkable energy infrastructure all over prime agricultural land, but well done for supporting Australian-made and locally made PPE on government work sites.
Member for Eureka.
He's bringing the member back to this bill. Energy infrastructure
Thank you, member for Eureka. I remind the member to come back to the member for Kew on the point of order.
On the point of order, the member for Mildura was being entirely relevant about the bill. She was talking about local content and giving a prime example of where it is not the case.
Ask the member for Mildura to come before the bill before the House. Thank you.
Sorry, Acting Speaker. I actually thought this was entirely about the bill when we're talking about locally made PPE, and if government infrastructure projects are entirely relevant to this bill. The fact that I'm actually pointing out some other facts in other areas, I know is a little bit scary for those on the other side and they don't want to talk about it. That's been made clearly obvious by debating this bill for 3 days in a row now, but this is entirely relevant.
Order.
So, Acting Speaker, in Mildura and across Mallee, the farming and the agriculture sector is the backbone of that economy, and government-supported projects and government infrastructure projects now are threatening that. Generational farms, not just on farms, but also transport, logistics, food manufacturing, regional exporters, they are local jobs. And local infrastructure projects, government work sites that are going through private land. See where the grey areas are here and why regional communities are so upset? So this is entirely relevant to this bill. Let me give you an example. The horticulture sector in Sunraysia alone contributes to $1 billion annually. $1 billion. It employs thousands of people, including, like I said, local apprentices and trainees. And yet, when growers are crying out against government projects that come through that land, this government doesn't want to talk about it. And to say that it's not relevant and that these bills don't cross over is an absolute insult to those that have had to come to the front steps of Parliament week after week to try to be heard. It is very clear that those on the other side have never heard the statement, 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in that order.